Well, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? So today, obviously, here I am in Sedona making this video. I'm actually in the backside of the resort that I'm staying, all thanks to Dennis Harness. I mean, wow, he actually paid for one night here for me. This is more than I could have ever asked for Dennis Harness. He has been the greatest hostess here in Sedona. He has taken us to so many places, so many amazing places. We went to this really amazing vortex near a Buddhist temple that, wow, it was just crazy energy, man, wow. And right now, as you can see, looks like I have gotten an electric shock because of my hair. However, I just got a very special energy massage, which was done by this great guy named Jose. And he also did crystal therapy on me. He did some Reiki therapy on me for my knee. And this was, I can probably say easily, this was the best massage possible of my life. That's my sister-in-law teasing me from the balcony there. So, yeah. But anyway, today I wanted to do a video on third lord in the sixth house here. And what happens when lord of the third house is in your sixth house? Well, first of all, what is the third house? Third house represents communication of all kinds. It is the house of siblings. It's a house of intellect, because you use your intelligence to do something, to create something. For that is why third house is also the house of your hobbies and your skills, because use your intellect to do something like making a painting, artistry, building an aeroplane, building a model plane, anything that you do as a hobby, as a skill that you have of fixing things, is from the third house. Third house is also the house of not mass communication, but like local communication, like journalism, like you're talking about the news of your city. But it's also the house of dramatic arts, media arts, meaning acting. Your skills of acting, your skills of, mimicking, and your stage performance is seen from the third house. Third house, as I obviously said, is the house of siblings as well, your relationship with the siblings, close neighbors. So what happens when this lord goes into the sixth house? Well, what is the sixth house? Sixth house is the house of diseases, deaths, obstacles, enemies, non-profit organizations, unprivileged people, poor people. It's about healing and health. So it becomes quite a dramatic house in anyone's chart, because it deals with all the realistic things that you can think of, in terms of day-to-day life. So this is why sixth house is also known as the house of day-to-day life, meaning your everyday work life, your everyday things that you do. So what it shows is that because your third house is communication, it shows that your communication really gets developed by talking of healing, talking about health concerns. You communicate about, what diseases are to be need to be cured, how many people are suffering, then they need to be cured. It's kind of like somebody who becomes an activist, who communicates about things that are improving in the world. These guys develop their communication by being in conflict. Their communication and intellect comes with dealing with oppositions, competition, people who are out there to get them. So what happens is their intellect and communication becomes very shrewd, but at the same time very smart. They're able to deal with the realistic things of life, and through that they're able to get what they want. Meaning that third house is a house of efforts. Third house is a house of your energy, where you put your energy in. So their self-effort goes into defeating their enemies. So this can actually show not only an athlete, somebody who goes out and competes with other athletes, but it's also becomes a house of a fighter, somebody who'll go out and fight, who maybe go out and fight for their siblings, for their community, but who may actually become a fighter as well. So let's say Sun controls your third house, and Sun is in the sixth house. That means the sign of Leo is controlling your third house. First of all, what is sun? Sun is your father. Sun is your ego, your self-esteem. It's your personality. It's a significator or the karka of your career. It represents government. Okay, so a lot of profound things are connected to the sun. So when sun goes into the sixth house, what it shows first of all is that your father could have been in the medical field. Your father could have been in a government service or non-profit organization. However, you got to understand when sun is controlling the third house, meaning that sign of Leo is in the third house, and you count 4 places away because third lord is in the sixth house, sun is going to be in a sign of Scorpio, meaning that this is a very karmic filled sign. And because of the fact it's controlled by Mars and a little bit by the South Node Ketu. So you're bringing karmic backlog regarding your father and your fatherly figure in this life. So what this shows is that your relationship with a father could have been very tough in the beginning, especially in your youth year. Your father could have been physically abusive to you. And at the same time, your father, really put you in a lot of situations where you had to face enemies, where you had to face conflicts, whether with his wrongdoings or your own. Okay, and this also shows that you could have been in a lot of competition with your siblings, and you guys could have had this rivalry in the beginning of your your young stages where you guys would play sports and you would become really competitive. So you are in a competition with your siblings, and your siblings to you and your siblings could have been not I wouldn't say a bad relationship, but the things related to siblings and conflicts with siblings really somehow developed your communication style. And your father developed your communication style by being in a conflict. Now, if Sun is receiving positive aspect from Jupiter or sitting with Jupiter, okay, what this can show is that your father talked about medical things a lot in your life. If Sun is sitting with Mars, your father could have talked about a lot of medical things, a lot of things related to non-profit organization, even in sports. Your father could have been in sports because Sun and Mars both are very masculine planets, and Sun, Mars, Jupiter, 3 planets really signify sports. So your father could have been in sports, put you in competition and sports, and your communication style, your hobbies, and your skills were really developed with things related to sports. Okay, now if let's say Moon controls your 3rd house, and Moon goes into the 7th house, shows your mother could have been a healer. Your mother could have been a nurse or a doctor herself. Your communication style, your ability to communicate with others was really developed through the skills of your mother and siblings. And perhaps it shows that your mother could have been ill. Your mother could have been very sick in the initial stages of your birth, and through that it kind of changed your mindset and personality about how to deal with diseases, how to deal with when obstacles comes in your life. So your effort, which is your 3rd house, your communication, your skills, really go into the 6th house. Your mind is always in the 6th house because of the fact it's now trying to show you, hey, you need to develop the skills to bring yourself out. You need to develop, you got to have some sort of a hobby and interest of the 6th house in order to bring peace of mind to yourself, meaning that feeding the hunger, helping poor people, helping people who are unprivileged, working with non-profit organization. Now, if Moon is alone, meaning that no planet is sitting with the Moon, and Moon has no planets on either side of the houses, meaning the 5th and 7th house are empty, that can really show a person who is very conflicted in their mind, and they're always dealing with enemies. The mother becomes their own enemies, and they somehow find themselves finding some peace and salvation by being a nun, by being a person who goes out or goes to a 3rd world country, helps these people with their non-profit organization, and finds that the peace of mind really comes when this person helps somebody else being in conflict. Okay, again, it's your relationships with the siblings. So relationship with the siblings will always be competitive or always be in conflict. Now, if Moon in Libra is quite good, it's quite well. It shows that there was a lot of creativity among siblings, a lot of things about designing and hobbies and all sort of artistic things happening with the siblings. But at the same time, your sibling could have been sick. as a negative thing. Your younger sibling must have had some health problems because of this alignment. So this is how you need to start looking at these different planetary alignments. Let's say Mercury controls your third house and Mercury goes in the sixth house. Now, in some case, Mercury will be exalted. That means it can show that your communication between your siblings was highly intellectual. Because if Mercury is controlling the third house of Gemini and it's in the sixth house of Virgo, meaning that Mercury is exalted. Mercury loves looking at details. Mercury is a businessman. Mercury is communication itself. Mercury is writing. Mercury is your speaking skills. All the things related to the third house. Okay, and Mercury is very analytical and critical. He looks at things and analyzes things. So it can show that your relationship with the siblings was very solid, very grounded, very much to the point, and at the same time there was a lot of criticism happening between you and your siblings. Like, you would criticize your sibling about this and they would criticize you about that, and they might have created a little bit of conflict or competition, but mainly it was a very good relationship, because Mercury loves being in the sixth house because it originally controls the sixth house. And Mercury here can not only become a communicator of diseases, meaning that you can write books on diseases, books on healing, but you can also go out and speak and do public speaking regarding debts, regarding how to deal with your finances. It can also deal with, you can go out there and speak about the people who are poor and unprivileged. You can be a public speaker of that, because this is what Mercury is doing. And since Mercury is business and third house is self-efforts, you put your self-efforts into things of the sixth house, and you express your business through it. Meaning, you can have a business of debt management. You can have a business in a medical business. You can be in the business as a lawyer, because sixth house is also not only conflicts, but also disagreements and divorces. Okay, so and Mercury here can really give a strong indication of a lawyer, because lawyer's main job is not to do any paperwork, it's to speak. It's to go out there and convince the jury that what I'm telling you is the truth, and you need to let my client go or give my client whatever he needs. Okay, so it's a very strong indication. Venus controls. Let's say Venus controls your third house and Venus goes into the sixth house. First of all, what is Venus? Venus is your spouse for men and women both. And for a man, it represents the personality of the spouse. And Venus is also your relationship. Whether it's your relationship in romance or any relationship you form as a friend, as a colleague, as a spiritual guru, whatever, the forming of relationship is controlled by Venus. Venus is your sense of pleasure. It's your sense of artistry. It's your sense of creativity. This is why creativity and acting and even painting is controlled by Venus. So when Venus goes into the sixth house, it shows that your artistic skills and your ability to express yourself through media and arts are really about dramatizing situations, meaning that you can play a lot of role in the movies where you would be in conflicts with enemies and fighting with enemies. You can always play kind of roles in a movie where you will be in conflicts with women. You can express your artistic self by showing the suffering of the world. And Venus is also, your ability to sing, because third house is communication, Venus is singing. So you can express yourself by singing, and singing about either diseases, conflicts with people, or people who are suffering in the world, the unprivileged people. So all of these things can come out. But at the same time, since Venus represents your marriage and your spouse, it can show your spouse could be in a medical industry, your spouse could be a lawyer, or your spouse could be in a non-profit organization. And you can run into conflicts time to time with your spouse. However, to really see how your marriage life is going to be, you got to look at the D9 chart, the Nemansha chart, which surgically opens your seventh house of marriage and opens it up and shows you exactly what your married life will be like. So even your Venus might be damaged in the sixth house. At the same time, if it's in a good place or exalted, in Nemansha, then you can have a very blissful marriage. And sixth house will show that, hey, your wife is working in a place where there's a lot of conflicts, a lot of diseases, like hospital or courthouses. Let's say Mars rules your third house, goes into the sixth house. When Mars goes into the sixth house, Mars can be debilitated, or Mars could be in some other neutral sign. Okay, and so what you gotta remember is that Mars itself is a significator of third and sixth house. Mars represents conflicts. Mars represents self-esteem, meaning your self-efforts. Mars represents your willpower, your ability to go out and fight. So this is a strong indication of somebody who goes out and fights. And this could be anything. If you, let's say your Mars is debilitated, Mars controls the sign of Aries in the third house. This can so show somebody who's like a thug of the neighborhood, goes out, picks up fights, gets into fight because now Mars is debilitated, meaning your efforts, your energy, and your willpower is going towards negative things of the lower plane that Mars considers. Meaning that you can be a lot of conflicts, even physical fights with your siblings and brothers, especially. You can be out there dealing with drug dealers. You can be out there dealing with really bad crowd and even getting into fights with them using weapons against your enemy, meaning using guns and knives. So really a thug can be seen this, but at the same time, if it's a positive Mars, you got to see this. These people can actually become soldiers. They can become fighters. They can become like, athletes, like fighter, like in boxers, martial artists. Or they can become your basketball players, your cricketers, your football players, your soccer players, because your effort is going into competition, your effort is going into dealing with conflicts, and your effort is going into dealing with diseases. That means you can get injured in being in sports, so you have to deal with that. So you can be a sports medicine, you can be in surgery, you can be a doctor himself because, or doctor itself, because Mars is a significator of the sixth house of diseases. So Mars can either use a knife to, injure you, or Mars can use the knife to seal you and cure you. So that's what Mars is. Let's say if Jupiter controls your third house and Jupiter is in the sixth house. Well, Jupiter, first of all, Jupiter is what? Jupiter is your knowledge, your higher divine knowledge. Jupiter is a significator of finances. Jupiter is your luck. Jupiter is your gurus, your teachers in life. Jupiter is what you learn through spirituality, through religion, through classical things, classical literature, classical, text of any kind. So when Jupiter of the third, ruling the third house, goes into the sixth house, it can show you can be, you yourself can be a teacher or a guru for people who are facing a lot of conflict in life, facing a lot of debt in life. People who are facing a lot of disease in life, you go out and you counsel people. Mercury and Jupiter both can become, health counselors. You can go out and advise people how to live better. You can preach people in third world countries how to make themselves better. But at the same time, you may actually find your gurus and your teachers in the sixth house of conflicts and diseases and all sorts of turbulent things, meaning that either you may find a very spiritual guru being while you're in a very turbulent situation, or you may find wrong type of gurus who are going to put you in conflicts. So these guys have to be careful who they bring in as a teacher, who they pick as a teacher in life, because that particular teacher might be there as a karmic thing to put them into conflicts, meaning that your teacher says, hey, why don't you go pick this career and do this? I think you will be really great at it. You do that, yet it brings the most amount of stress in your life, takes away your finance and puts you more in debt. Or if Jupiter is well placed, it can actually show you can be a financier, banker who loans out money to other people, because Jupiter is what? Jupiter is a significator of finances. Now let's say Saturn controls your third house, goes into the sixth house. Here, Saturn can either be neutral or it can be actually debilitated. Because if Saturn controls the sign of Capricorn, it'll be debilitated in the sixth house. So what this can show, definitely, it can show you may not have younger siblings. Saturn, because Saturn's energy is so low, it didn't give you younger siblings, or when you had your younger siblings, you just never had that good tight relationship with them. Saturn distanced you from your siblings right away. You can never get along with them. You just kind of can't even stand them, and they think the same way about you. And Saturn is what? Saturn is your discipline. Saturn is your structure. Saturn, represents organization skills. Saturn is delay and frustration in your life. So when Saturn is in the sixth house, although Saturn does very well in the sixth house, because from the sixth house, Saturn aspects the eighth house, 12th house, and the third house. All the malefic houses of the horoscopes are now being suppressed by Saturn. Okay, anytime Saturn sits in any house, he suppresses that house, meaning that he delays that house, brings frustration. So here Saturn can actually suppress your debt, it can suppress your enemies, it can give victory over enemies. But when it's debilitated, that means your effort and your communication style and your ability to put your effort into something are not being fructified. Like, you know, your Saturn can represents chronic diseases. Maybe you may have had a chronic disease related to your ears, related to your hands or shoulders. You may have had chronic pain because of the fact Saturn is debilitated. Now, if Saturn's neutral, Saturn will not do that. Saturn will actually give you a lot of energy and effort to do something that you want to accomplish. Saturn can make you a government worker, a non-profit organization leader. Saturn can also give you a ability to help the handicapped people. Or if Saturn is going against you, meaning that Saturn has malefic planets looking at him, you know, or Saturn is in a very debilitated, the maximum debilitated state, then it can, you know, go against you, meaning that it can give you chronic diseases of, you know, joint pains, hands and shoulders. Your siblings will not have a really great tight relationship with you. However, Saturn will always release you after the age of 35 to 42, because that's when Saturn matures. That's why I always say this: Saturn will be good for you after 35. Saturn will be good for you after 37, 38. That depends on certain signs and house placement. But you know how each planet, like Mars, matures after 28. Just like that, Saturn really matures after 36, 37. From 35, he really starts, you know, improving things in your life. But Saturn can really frustrate you regarding diseases and deaths if it's debilitated. Meaning that Saturn will just bring delay. If you have debt, your debt will be there for a long time, because Saturn is a slow moving planet. Okay, whenever you put your effort into something, you have to put 10 times the effort to do something, because of the fact Saturn either might be debilitated. If it's neutral, you might be putting, you know, 75% effort. With debilitated Saturn, you may have to put 150% of effort. You know, you have to try 150 times to get your one thing right. Okay, so this is how you read the third lord in the sixth house with different planets. So this was my analysis of third lord in the sixth house. If you're new to my channel, subscribe below. And if you want to get your full astrological report to see where your third lord is placed, and all your Gemini charts and all kinds of information, for that, check out the links below. Check out my books there, Astrology Aspect and Conjunction at the Speed of Light, and my full astrology report. And you guys will be able to see everything about your horoscope on that website. Otherwise, we'll see you next time. And it's time for me to now go and eat some cool exotic food at a restaurant, because my sister-in-law is here, so we're going to hang out here. Bye-bye.